Hey, so before I start talking, let me know if you can hear me. I am still here. It's waiting on confirmation that I'll start rambling. Okay. Morning, Matthew. So basically, I suck at keeping a schedule, and Hank is beating the shit out of me when it comes to content production. So the easiest way for me to do that is to stream it every hour to catch up. So this is going to be an anything goes session while I lift. Trying to talk a little bit less about penis enlargement than whatever, but whatever comes up comes up. So got my tablet here, and I'll check chat as I lift. Sound good? So wonders, I'm not doing consulting right now because it takes a lot of time. um, Basically, it takes me an hour to set up for the consultation, an hour to do the consultation, and on top of that, I I'm assuming I have a very good ADHD, if we're being honest, where I can't just do a set schedule like that. So it's very hard for me to do consults. Coaching though for sexual health should be coming back relatively soon, but no promises. I'm going to be probably doing shoulders, but I was on the couch yesterday and I was in this position too long and I like tweaked my left shoulder playing Baldur's Gate. So we'll see how that goes. This might turn into a back pain. That's where the awkward part starts. Because I typically don't talk to anyone in the gym. I am there for one reason, and that is to work on myself and fight the demons inside me. So, constantly talking for an hour while lifting should be a great idea, right? I don't know how many that was. I don't typically count unless I'm actually doing progressive overload. But yeah, it's basically just a warm up for now, and we'll go from there. Advice on correcting curve, Matthews. So, with Peronis, you're gonna have to forgive me for being out of breath. With Peronis, basically, literally stretch it in the opposite direction, and the longer you do it in the opposite direction, the better the results will be. However, that does not translate to more games. This is not a smart idea. But at any rate, if you wear an extender specifically for peyronie's, you'll get some very good results. Depending on how severe the peyronie's is, you can get something called Siloflex. And that's basically an enzyme that breaks down collagen. They make you do stretching and extension wear to straighten it out even further. But we're trying to break down any calcium deposits or collagen fibrils that are basically causing the curve. So if we are not careful, well, I guess again, there's blood going in two separate directions right now, guys. So breaking down those collagen fibrils will be what inevitably leads to a straighter penis, and therefore probably longer on the roller too. If you guys got any questions, let me know. If not, I'll just start rambling on what I'm planning, at least when it comes to fitness. Also, if someone wants to count my reps for me, that'd be great. So, I think I said something in the thumbnail that I want to get up to about 235. For reference, I'm 6'1". Uh, Body fat calipers say about 12 to 13% body fat. Gut says otherwise. But essentially, I'm about 227 now, so a pound a week over the next 8 weeks should get me at 235, and then I'll cut down a bit and then go from there. But we'll see. I have issues. I have a very sticky body weight, and that could just be a calories thing. But I will lose fat but retain the shape or the weight because it's like a slow recomp. And same thing goes for muscle mass. I'll lose fat while I do it, but it's a slow recomp instead of like an actual bulk. Oh, the drums. So they are not for melting bodies. They are for my fish tank. That's a saltwater sump filter upstairs. I have a 300-gallon saltwater tank that I finally got under control, like pretty enough to actually show people. But that means I have to clean the algae off the glass too. So that's what those barrels are for massive water changes, and not any like serial killering that you guys are aware of. Do I do any cardio? So for the past, I don't know, 8 months, I worked up from doing like 20 minutes of steady state up to 45 minutes of steady state, got down to about 12% body fat. And then now I'm doing about 30 minutes of steady state cardio with my wife at Planet Fitness. So yeah, I'm a cardio bunny anymore, to be honest. Honestly, though, if you're not doing cardio, you're missing like out on so many health benefits, especially sexual health benefits. Let me rip these out. So another thing to do if you guys are trying to get like really wide shoulders is your lateral deltoids, or one head. But if you have the weights in front of you, it'll target a little bit more front. And if you put it directly to your side, you get a lot more tension on the lateral deltoid itself. So what I do is I usually do 8 to 10 here, and then bring it to the side, do 8 to 10 here, and then I do relatively high volume for shoulders, but it has worked pretty well so far. Again, wasn't counting. All right, 0. Non-PE related. I have very poor vascularity genetics. Me too. I've been de-skin peeled under 10% body fat with high muscle mass. I bench 330. No bicep vein. Could be a part make them more vascular. Yes, but there's a lot more to it than that. So, for example, you can't see my bicep veins that well either. If you have naturally thick skin, I think the range is like 2 millimeters to like upwards of 4 to 5 millimeters of just skin. It's going to be very hard for any vascularity to show through. Additionally, if you have just thicker fascia, those veins aren't going to come out that easily. So if you're built like me, long muscle bellies, not much vascularity because you have thick skin from your daddy, you're kind of shit out of luck, but best you can do is make up for it with a lot more mass. Gnome, those barrels. If I was a hitman, I'd be making a lot more money than I do now. And that's not to flex what I'm making now, but if I was a hitman, I'd be very good at it. So another thing you guys could do, or at least lateral deltoids, is once you crank out your main part, you focus only on the top half. And you're going to have to drop the weight for this. But essentially, your shoulders are very strong at the bottom part of the movement. But as you get closer to your ear, as in your elbow gets closer to your ear, the harder it is to contract harder. And that's what's going to kind of give you the separation that you need. So stop here, go up to here. Some people go all the way up to here. I really can't do that because this basement is pretty short. But I keep it up at ear height, just so you don't get any weird shoulder impingement. Speaking of, this is actually helping my shoulder a lot. So I think one more set of those, and then we'll go from there. So I don't actually like write down my routines at all either. It's all what I really want to target. So right now, try to bring up my arms to match my torso while still building up my lower back here, so that way I get better back wings. And also trying to rebuild my legs. So it's relatively just a lot of math stuff right now, but there is some specific stuff I'm doing. For example, trying to hit lower quad, so I'm doing full ROM, 5-bar back squats. Fucking wrecked me yesterday. Like I was down and out from like 10 to 1 just because I couldn't walk and I took a nap. That's the nice thing about being self-employed. But at any rate, back to my programming. Basically, I just literally fuck around with this until I figure out what part of the muscle I actually want to target and what move is going to get that. So for lower back, for example, you get a lot better with reverse pull downs. It's slightly wider. At least for me, with my longer muscle bellies. So I'm literally going to do that for 6 weeks, crank up the weight, and then work on the stretch at the top of the portion after the set, because that's actually very important for recruiting more stem cells to the muscle. When will pumps stuck? When will the pumps and auto pumps be back in stock? So that's on me. I forgot to order smart pumps on the last order. I ordered them by air. They should be in this week or the next. Something interesting about vibrations. I can get the laptop and I'll do that. All right. Got my post strain of 2% with vibrations to 3% after 40 minutes with vibrations. That's what 2 less pounds says Josh B. Yeah, so vibrations are fucking nuts. The only person I know that's really having issues with it is Hank. And that complicates things for me, right? But he's still a believer in it where, oh, he's trying to figure out how to control the edema response. Which is really weird because he does not really have a phenotype for a lot of edema. Edema collectors tend to be relatively overweight. So that's mainly because they carry more water in general. So when I was the same weight I am now, but at like 26% body fat, it was so much easier for me to get edema when pumping. But now, like, I actually have to try to get it. And again, I'm not super lean, but, you know, athletic enough until I take my shirt off. So that's something we got to figure out with Hank. But we are definitely looking into bringing a product to market for vibrations. So keep an eye out for that. And I just realized I did the finisher wrong. I didn't hold it all the way at the top, I think. So we're going to do some upright rows. I can't breathe apparently. Nope. No, I should pay someone to read questions out for me. I'll have to see what Brett's doing tomorrow. Ugh. Whoops. Hopefully I didn't break anyone's ears. Okay, back to questions real quick. Hey, Hank. uh, this does not work well with touchscreen. Looking forward to adding vibrations to my pumping. Okay, yeah, so keep the questions coming. It's gonna be really hard for me to entertain you guys for an hour without them, so. Ugh. I'm gonna have to fix my hair so this on the other side. Do you still see me over here? Should be able to. I'm trying. This is actually a long rest break for me. Hey, normally I just do 30 seconds, whenever the muscle feels good, but now that I have to talk, this is like cardio. Have you plateaued yet with vibrations? Ask John. No, I have not, but I've also have not done any like crazy consistent work. So like I'll do 4 days, typically a week, and then I did have to take a couple weeks off here and there because of like blisters. So I never really had a chance to develop a lot of strength adaptation. But I think length gain is going to keep going. I have not done it in a while. Sorry, I need a good position to talk in. And then with pumping, I just started it, but I've actually talked to Hank about this. It's hurting my left nut really bad right now, and I think it's because it's the epididymis. It's the part that's above the testes. Pretty sure it's involved in semen production or sperm production. Mine got sucked into the pump, and it's been angry ever since. I have to be very careful pumping, so I can't do my full pressure as normal. All right, give me a sec, guys. I could definitely do more weight on it, but I don't want to fuck up my shoulder. So this might be a minute. Oh yeah. So Hank and I met in a undisclosed metropolitan area, and that's where I got these shorts because, of course, he had to go look at shoes, and I'm a sucker for green, so that's how I got $50 Nike shorts on impulse. Oh, blood restriction therapy for weightlifting. I used to do it. Problem with it is it generates so much fatigue, like double the fatigue you would normally get when it comes to typical curls, for example. So it'll help a lot with vascularity, but like if you're just trying to crank up the mass, you're gonna have a bit of an issue. It's a good finisher. I wouldn't do it more than 4 to 6 weeks at a time, just because you don't want to have to wear those straps for 30 minutes a day. I did a whole leg workout back before COVID with it. I had so much swelling for the next 3 or 4 days that you got to be really careful with it. Do not exceed more than 15 minutes of wear at a time. Hey, says Louise, is higher pressure 8 to 12 inches of mercury necessary for girth gains? For 4 to 5 months, I did below that, and now I'm at higher pressures. I started seeing some gains with also discoloration. So, it depends. I say to start at about 5 inches of mercury, especially if you are a new individual, because good chances you're not a super strong, or you don't have a super strong erection to begin with. Hank says between 8 to 12 inches of mercury. That's fine. I just think for your first month, you want to probably start at 5 inches of mercury, build up to that higher pressure. That being said, you could technically gain at these lower levels. There are a bunch of case reports that like fetish pumpers who pump at like 2.5 inches of mercury gained erect size, but that could just be like literal lymphatic tissue buildup instead of like blood holding tissue buildup. So, who's to say if that's full gains or just like, if you will, from fetish pumpers? But for the most part, you will need to get above your tuna cut's stretch capacity, and that's going to be anywhere from 4 inches of mercury on the very low end up to, let's say, 14 inches of mercury on the very high end. But do not start at beyond 10 inches of mercury in most cases. If I do 30 minutes of stretching and 20 minutes of pumping, which gains will come first, length or girth? That depends on you. So, personally, if I do any length work in my routines, I gain length before girth. I'm not sure why, but I had a bunch of clients who could not gain length for the life of them. One of them eventually took out all girth work, and he finally gained. So, if we think about how the tunic is shaped, it has lines going up and down all the way around the tunica, the vertical lines, and you're going to have horizontal rings. Depending on how dense those are, will change what work does what. So if you're like me and have relatively loose, I guess, vertical lines, you're going to gain length easier. If you have relatively loose rings, you're going to gain girth easier. So you really just have to play around with it and see. For me, if I do more than 10 minutes of length work, I'm going to gain length when I do girth work. So 1 second, guys. It's a little off. Anyone counted for me? I think that was 9. Now, typically, I have way more control with these movements, but today it's not the day for that. If using water method for vacuum hanging is okay for the water to bubble when using vibrations. So, that's a good question. When I water pump with vibrations, it's fine. However, there shouldn't really be any air bubbles in your vacuum pump if you do the water method correctly. So you might be leaking air. So keep an eye and check out your, sorry, I can't breathe. Keep an eye out and check your seal when vacuum pumping or vacuum hanging with the water method. Nice tattoos, thank you. So the funny thing about that is I get compliments from every age group but my own. So 20 to 30 will say nothing about my tattoos, which is fine. I don't really care. I don't have them for other people. But I just think it's interesting because most young people only have black and white tattoos because of fashion. And that's fine too. It's just funny. As for my tattoos, the dragon was for Leviathan, or is for Leviathan. It's a reminder to be bold. And then the wolf, the shield, the owl, and the temperance tarot are all for the 4 cardinal virtues. So that's wisdom, bravery, courage, and temperance. So that's just a reminder to you. Keep my head cool, follow good principles. And the koi fish tattoo are one, because I have a bunch of koi fish, not koi fish, fish in general. And reminder to keep balance for, yin and yang. Another question. I'm 7.1 by 5, full of 7.5 by 5.5. I need to do length work or will pumping suffice? I'm more concerned with girth. Depending if you've done length work or not, you could hit that goal. If it's 6 months, just get it out of the way, and then just focus on girth. That's what I would do personally, but I also don't have a limit on how much I want to gain, really. So, whatever you want more, go for is what I normally say. But when you're that close to your length goal already, it might just make more sense to knock it out. I do have 4 clips, and I'm just too lazy to get them right now. Also hoping that live streaming my workouts helps me increase my intensity a bit. Or at the very least, make me a better presenter. So there's no bubbles, but when the RPM gets to 2500, the bubbles start to ripple. So you will see the vibration waves in water. Sorry, I got a message that there is not enough video bandwidth. Let me know if you guys are having issues. And I can try to figure that out. Doesn't look like it. But anyway, as long as you're not like getting blisters or anything with vibrations, it's probably okay to have those little air pockets. All right, I'm gonna crank this out and then move on to some cable presses. Then if the internet keeps giving me issues, I'm gonna go run upstairs and check my router, okay? This is gonna be a cheat. All right. But yeah, keep those questions coming. And do me a solid. I don't really ask this too often, but if you give this video a like, especially because I'm trying to figure out if this is worth my time or not. Probably gonna do it anyway, at least a couple days a week. But your feedback's greatly appreciated. So, Sean, yes, partial reps are very good. Stretch partial reps. I've been doing them since before Renaissance periodization was a thing. I learned about them from Ben Pakulski's MI40X. So, I have no problems with Dr. Mike, but stretched reps, or I guess they're stretched partials, is not a relatively new phenomenon by any means. It might be even scientific research studies. It's less than a decade old, but the elites have been doing stretched reps. That's what at least Ben Mikulski called them for a while now. And basically, I'll show you guys what curls. It's what he would do is, imagine this is an incline bench. Thank you for the super chat. I'll check that in a second once I finish this thought. You would hold the weight. The last rep is a drop set. So you'll hold it for as long as you can, go again, crank out another 8 to 10 reps with proper tempo, hold until you can't, drop it again, do another set of that. So 8 reps, held in the elongated position, flexing your triceps just a tad to get the full elongation of the muscle. Oh, that shit took my arms from like 15 to 16 in like 6 months. Granted, I was like 180, I went up to 190, so it wasn't like that crazy. But when I was natural at the time, that was a great jump. All right, super chat. Big-headed beady, excuse me. Anyway, I plateaued at 10 pounds of tension, 55 minutes of apex. I have not made gains in 2 months. Vibration gets me to the same fatigue, just faster. I'm taking 2 weeks of decon with the same issue. Any idea? So, quick troubleshooting. Has your stretch velocity length increased at all in this time? For me, for the first 3 weeks of any length training period, there will be consistent progress in my stretch velocity. But around day 18, we'll see the beginning length catch up to the after length. And when that drops below 2%, that delta, you're probably not going to gain much length because we can't stretch the tissue more than it's already been stretched. The entire penis is fatigued at that point, and you need a week off to recuperate, and then you should actually see a bit of a boost in your rec length, but a drop in your stretch velocity length. So that's the first thing. Second, how's your erection quality? If you are having issues getting erect, you might know. Actually, it's sometimes hard to tell. If your cock ring size basically is a lot bigger than your erect size, you're having some kind of issues. Check with your pelvic floor first. If not, crank up your cardio, and then probably start some Kegels to help with just that strength of the pelvic floor. If either of those work, you probably want to just take 3 to 6 months off of PE, completely lose any strength adaptation you have, and then restart. It's a bummer, but 3 months of downtime is probably more than what you need to get growing again. Do you still recommend the beginner's length routine on my adult film network? Yes. Main thing though is like I would change the 5-minute stretches to 2.5 minutes just because it's much easier to hold. I already changed it in my book. I just gotta cut around to it and refilm. But what was I doing? Upright cable presses. So give me 1 second. No changes in stretch velocity from the super chatter. BPL hasn't moved either, but harder to convert to pelvic floor and getting back into daily cardio. All right, give that 4 to 6 weeks and add in some pumping. That would be your best bet for right now. That went about the beginner's length routine. Double the sets, cut the total set time in half though, for the beginner's length routine. Okay, keep those questions coming. So, after this, I gotta do some rear delt flies. I'll probably try squeezing some arms, like triceps, maybe a little biceps to see how much time it goes on. Typically, I've only been lifting for like 40 to 50 minutes. And mostly that's because I don't have to walk halfway across the gym to set up every time. It's just same station, and that just cuts down on a lot of BS. Like, you don't have to wait for equipment or anything. But yeah, ideally, you don't want your workouts to be longer than an hour anyway, unless we're talking like powerlifting and you're on your ass for 5 minutes as your nervous system recovers. And that's one of the main reasons why I don't like powerlifting. It's because it takes a half hour to do 25 reps. Most. Which sucks, is because I'm kind of built for the sport until you realize that the knees of a 70-year-old man. Let's see. Some just came in. What just came in? Okay. Wonders. Will you ever make a routine guide? My book, it has all those beginner, intermediate, advanced. Additionally, once you get the hang of my protocols, like basically all you have to do is watch the interval length protocol video, and like I think it's the new idea for girth, and I basically lay out my entire training regimen there for it. But in summary, if you're not hitting your target fatigue rate of like 2 to 3% after every workout, you need to either add more time or add more weight, and that's your progression. When it comes to girth, you want to just add in some tunica release stuff to make it easier. But again, if you're not hitting your expansion, you need to add more sets of intervals, and then you can add in clamping as you really progress. But there's a path where you don't even need to do clamping. At least that's what the research suggests. Clamping is very potent. I'm not writing it off. I'm just saying it's a little high risk. A lot of people aren't really up for it. Is it possible my bone press stretch flacid's increasing because of overwork? I've only done 8 HEG sessions at about 2 pounds for 40 minutes. The first 3 sessions saw rapid increase in stretch flaccid, but the last 5 sessions, nothing. So when you're due, that adaptation response is going to be kind of weird because it's more of a stress response than it is anything else. They used to teach that in your first 4 weeks, you'll develop a stiff flaccid, not to be confused with a hard flaccid. And essentially, it just feels tight, and that's because it's a stress response. So keep an eye out for that. But like, typically, I'm going to compare this to chiropractic a bit. When you get your back realigned, your spine doesn't stretch out more and more every time you do chiropractic. When you do your first couple sessions of PE, you can see a rapid increase where that collagen is just laid back into shape. But that's not actually gains, it's more like posture correction of the tunica, and then you can start slowly gaining after that. So don't give up hope. I don't know, I just turned Canadian for a second. But 1.5 kgs is a little low for gains in general. That's like 3 pounds. I'm not going to be able to do this exercise. Remember, I told you guys to put my shoulders, so I gotta find a variation. But honestly, that's enough work for lateral raises anyway. Here, let's try this. Yeah, really pissed off. And again, I was literally just laying on my couch. I had like a left tilt, playing Baldur's Gate on my laptop. And that's enough to like, I guess, give me a muscle spasm. Now that I think about it, probably fish oil. Anyway. How has your experience been with Alex? What's your dosage? So, since I don't have a prescription, I go on the gray market. and the results vary from supplier to supplier. Uh, 10 milligrams is my sweet spot, but remember, I'm just under 230 pounds right now. So a guy my size with my muscle mass needs a bit more Cialis than most. Um, Cialis is very easy to get a prescription for. Just say you have performance anxiety for like HIMS, and you can get high quality Cialis or Viagra pretty easily. Not saying that you should, this is not health advice. But for the most part, if you're a relatively healthy young man, you do not need Cialis. That being said, if you're chronically beating your dick into submission like I am, it definitely helps after sessions to make sure you're at peak performance when you're with your wife. I definitely overdid my right.
Also, daily interval pumping. It's from the super chatter. 15 minutes at about 10 Hg. At least once, if not twice.
Hypoxic clamping every other day. I mean, yeah, it sounds good. Just make sure you're not overworking. I would not do that much work with length work on top of it. That's definitely overdoing it.
Cash flow. So, you said you saw no gains from hanging for the first year or so,
And then you switched to pumping and saw results quickly. So to me, that shows that you created a lot of tunica and did not fill in the space to push out the tunica when you're erect. That would be the corpus cavernosum, what holds the blood. So when you added in pumping, your tunica finally started to fully expand. And that's why you gained so much. I wouldn't say it's pretty common, but it's not unheard of. Like, I would say maybe 10% of guys who just do length work will run into that issue. Because while stretching does increase vascularity, it pales in comparison to expansion and hypoxic training. So that's the main reason why I say you need a mix of all three in certain ratios depending on what you're working. So if you're going for length, 80% of what you should be doing is length work, elongation, and then 20% should be mainly expansion. And if you're really advanced, you could add in a smidge of hypoxic training.
let's see. Should I overshoot my girth gains?
Yes, about an eighth of an inch to a quarter of an inch. One, in case there's inflammation. And two, you will have some contraction of the tunica albuginea. So that means you're just not as good at stretching. So you can't push out against it as easily.
What's my max overhead?
So standing, I can't really train that here because that's in the rafters. But I got it up to 225 for like 3 or 4 like last year. But again, I hate strength training. It's not fun. As for bench, I got that up to 365 again last year. Don't train for strength that much. I'm just trying to rep out 315 for 8 by the end of the year. And then that's probably good enough for a normal gym pro. Let me crank these out on reasonable questions. Yeah, I'm definitely not paying attention to the reps here, or even the tempo.
New to PE, but amazed my starting measurements were up an inch from my last measurement. sometime in my 30s. Only thing I can think is daily Cialis for the last 3 years for ED. So, believe it or not, it's not uncommon for men to grow into their late 20s. A lot of men will grow in height until their late 20s. That being said, it's very uncommon. There are a lot of reports, particularly for girth, that men will gain a little bit of girth in their 20s. I wouldn't count on it, obviously, but it's not unheard of. So, like, if you couldn't like really grow a beard at the beginning of your 20s, and then in your 30s you're able to finally grow a full beard, that's two things, but half of that's finishing puberty. So that could have been it. Cialis does help a lot, especially if you had chronic ED issues in the past. Is splitting up your routine twice a day instead of once beneficial? Hold on, my hair's bothering me, guys. Basically, it should be more helpful for girth work because it helps with retention. But if you do length in one session and then girth in another session, it doesn't really matter. I notice I'm able to handle more pressure though if I split up my routines. Length in the AM, girth in the PM. But that's kind of hard on a lot of people's schedules, so it's definitely not necessary. On paper though, splitting up, like say 15 minutes of girth, 15 minutes of girth at night, and 15 in the morning, would be slightly better than 30 minutes straight. Let's see, let's do some face pulls. I don't know if I want to do any external rotations. We'll play it around with it and then go from there. Please stop. Nice rack. So I'm not sure if that's a joke, but this is a Rep Fitness 4000 series, and then you add in the Aries attachment. It did cost me a pretty penny because of how much I hate people. It is worth every penny. But no, really, this saves me a lot of time just having my own home gym. It's like my old gym was a 15-minute drive each way. So I'd lose a half hour there, and then I'd lose about 20 minutes extra waiting to get shit. So like setting up between areas or waiting for people to finish. So this is a good time saver in general. You obviously don't need anything as crazy as this, but this is one of my main hobbies. This and fish keeping. So it's worth it to me, especially if I'm trying to sell supplements or I'm trying to look my best. But either way, honestly, I probably spent more time at Planet Fitness than in this basement just because how much cardio I've been doing. I need something. Yeah, 1 second, I'll read those comments. This is one of the only few supersets I do. And it's like one of the few ways to actually get a muscle mind connection with the rear delts. So, face pulls followed by some external rotations really helps me connect with the rear delt. I used to spam rear delt flies, but I never felt it as good as just holding this for whatever reason. Granted, the traps get involved, but who doesn't want a nice juicy neck? So, again, you gotta play around with it. This is not something you really want to load early. They have shoulder issues. So, like, you have an issue with your labrum or rotator cuff. That movement under load may not be a good idea. Start light, see how it feels. Slowly work up a bit. I started with 15 3 years ago. I'm doing 20 now. So it's not really one of those progressive overload exercises. If one is only shooting for length, but you add in a bit of work of girth, girth work.
Yeah, basically, you're building the casing of the sausage with elongation work. You need to fill in the meat of the sausage, and that's going to be from expansion training and hypoxic training.
I'm 49, but if I want to keep growing overnight, I'm just fine with that.
Okay, Sean, in your case with the Cialis, yeah, it's more than likely just return to form. And if you lost some weight, that could be it. But your male sex hormone sensitivity changes as you age. So, for example, when you are a child, you are very DHT sensitive in your genitals and not so much in your hair and facial hair. So the first stages of puberty is only going to really be changing your muscle mass and your genitalia size. Then when you get into stages 3 or 4, we start developing a lot more body hair and coarser facial hair. And that's partially because the sensitivity of androgens changes during puberty. Then, as we continue to get older, our body goes through different phases, essentially, where different tissues become more sensitive to androgens. So, for example, if you are 30 and you notice your hairline is receding, that's because your androgen sensitivity in your hair changed. Now, as you get older, that stuff can impact your prostate and other, mainly your prostate, if I'm being honest. But your body hair can change, like you'll start growing hair on your back, everything like that. And that's just because your androgen sensitivity changes throughout your life. Not a huge deal, just keep an eye on it. Now back to you, Sean. There is a slight, I mean like 1 in a million chance that you became more androgen sensitive in your genitals. And that's what caused the growth. I highly doubt it, but it is theoretically possible. Ugh. All right, I got one more set of shoulders and then triceps. Probably. I don't know. What do you guys think needs more work, triceps or biceps? Ugh. Just give us some water. All right. No questions. They're gonna make me improv. Oh, thank God someone asked something. So note to self, when I do this tomorrow, I need to have topics ready for these lulls. Unless you guys are just okay with me grunting into the microphone. Because that's the easiest thing for me. Thoughts on porn-induced ED and the impact of abstaining from better gains. So, hold on, I'm trying to think how to word this. Porn-induced erectile dysfunction, as in you are not getting mentally aroused enough without it to reach max size of the erection, or is it actually impacting sex? Obviously, if it's impacting sex, it's a big deal, and you probably need to cut it cold turkey. When it comes to PE, that's a bit of a mixed bag because by nature of what we're doing, we are going to be hurting erection quality. So porn, while I'm not saying to use it, has its use when it comes to, like, say, getting fully erect for pumping. I personally think you should probably limit your porn consumption to no more than like 2 days a week for no more than like 10 to 20 minutes. Even then, that's a relatively high amount of porn compared to what our ancestors were seeing, right? So, yeah. It probably won't hurt PE unless you're like, it's going to be addictive masturbation habits more than anything else. That's going to hurt gains.
Is 1.5 kg not enough for hanging? What weight should I be hanging with? I'm kind of new. I haven't been doing manuals for a month prior to hang.
I recommend most people to start with 5 pounds. That's like 2.5 kilograms. 2.2 kilograms is a good starting point.
Aru, I have shoulder impingement, so I can barely do any compound movements. My physical trainer says my scapula is engaging, so I have to keep doing retractions. Those movements must be burning.
For me, since I've been doing it for 3 years, I have pretty healthy shoulders. Unless I lean like this for too long, but that's probably just me getting older. For shoulder impingement, I'm sorry to hear it. You obviously talk to your physical therapist about this, or personal trainer, not sure of the acronym, but you really just want to be able to keep it stable for compound movements. You don't even have to go heavy. So like if you start very low and just like do static holds, teach it to stay those muscles that balance the scapula, in the correct position, then you can work it up. A good YouTube channel for this is Squat University. Granted, he deals with more of like hips and leg issues, but shoulder impingement is a very common sports injury. So check him out. That's Squat University.
How many calories am I eating, Chrome? That depends. For context, my cut is 3,000 calories,
but I'm also doing 45 minutes of cardio, lifting for 40 minutes a day. My standard cardio, or not standard cardio, my normal calorie intake, just to stay the same size, is about 3,800 calories to 4,000 calories, depending on how much activity I have in the day. So it is gotten a lot easier for me to diet while simultaneously harder for me to bulk. And that's what's nice about putting on a lot of muscle mass, is that it's much easier to look good the more you build up. So if I go on vacation and just binge eat, that's only going to set me back 1 to 2 weeks instead of an entire month for the same amount of calories. So I'm not saying you need to get to my size, but the more muscle mass you have, the easier it is to stay relatively lean. And I don't even think I'm that big, to be honest, but I'm just so used to seeing, 300-pound plus obese men around me, and my lizard brain can't handle that, so I think I'm small. So I know it's not rational. Got any ideas how to reduce dots after pumping? Is it normal to get them at low pressures, like 3 to 5 inches of mercury? It is not normal to get red dots that low. However, it's not out of the ordinary. First, make sure your pump, what your handle is. Sorry, just blood in my arms, out of my brain. Your pump is actually calibrated, and you'll just need to get another one of those to make sure it's correct. But heat, L-citrulline, is the two main things that's going to help with those little red dots on the skin. Because all they are burst capillaries. If you get them to dilate more, L-citrulline's a vasodilator, heat's a natural vasodilator. That's going to help a lot. Then slowly pump up. We're talking a crank a second to get up to pressure, and that should help a lot. I haven't gotten red dots in over 3 years just by tweaking how much I pump up, how quickly, And then I basically am on L-citrulline all day. Probably do 5 sets of these and then 5 sets of curls. And I'll probably call it a day. Because chat's slowing down. I don't even know how long it's been. So. But diet-wise, there's another question in. Do you have any protein recipes you rely on? Your favorite whey protein? I just tried ghost chips. So I don't really eat any diet foods. I followed the vertical diet for about 3 to 5 years, and that was nothing but eggs and potatoes and rice and beef, and then whatever vegetables you're allowed on that, because you're not allowed to have fermenting vegetables. So a lot of spinach. You got to avoid broccoli. Anything high, not super high fiber, but something that causes inflammation you want to avoid on vertical diet. But no, I don't have any real go-tos. As for protein brands, I cycle through them as I take 50 grams a day. That's a container a month. And I normally get whoever has the best price to scoop ratio. Like, I don't even know. Oh, I have Now Sports protein. It's like a 10-pound bag. That should last me 2 to 3 months. But we'll see. Okay, I used to use something called Monster Whey. They were great, but something happened in their manufacturing process, and I got nothing but unflavored protein. It was disgusting, so I haven't used them since. But it's like a 5-gallon bucket of nothing but protein. It's great for bulking, and honestly great all the time because it's just protein. But honestly, whey protein's something everyone should have, if not, if you're allergic to whey or lactose. Chickpea protein's pretty gross, not gonna lie. But there are definitely alternatives for it, but you should have a protein supplement. What are your current thoughts on retention in the Porn-induced games? What is the best method for discrete practice in an office environment? Okay, so depends how long your commute is, but I would do the retention stuff on your commute. So to the office, back from the office, or just wear it at home after your session. You don't need it all day. You only need it for 2 to 3 hours at most. So like, I don't know what your living situation's like. Let's say you get home at 5. You do your PE then, eat, gym, retention before the gym, retention after the gym. That's how I would do it. Now, is it necessary? I've gained 3 inches without it. I am a shower though, and retention's gonna help growers much more than guys like me. So, a grower is going to be anyone that almost doubled in size from grower. So flaccid, so let's say you're 3 inches and you're 5.5 erect, that's going to be a grower. If you're a guy like me, who's 6.5 inches flaccid, 9 inches erect, it's going to be more of a shower because that's only a 33% difference compared to like 80% difference. You guys can check my math, but basically the idea is with retention, you retain the shape that you want to be. If you're already closer to your shape as a shower, since you're closer to your erect size, you won't need it as much, but I do use it for my girth training now. What I'm doing is 20 minutes of post-pump Cochrane wear, and that's it. Because we're trying to avoid hypoxia, but we're also trying to kind of teach the tunica to relax into the thicker shape. And I've noticed that that thickness sticks around a lot more because the tunica kind of just ragdolls into that shape. Granted, I've only done this 5 or 6 times since I started retention for girth. So I'll keep you guys updated.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find my spot. Regular pump cylinders are also out of stock.
Sorry, I think they're ordered. Again, they should be in this week. If not, we'll order them immediately.
During a decon, do you have any pumping or stretching still, or just completely on vacation for 3 months?
3-month deconditioning break. You only really need 6 weeks, unless we're talking like a whole ass reset. You've been doing PE for 5 years poorly. You shouldn't really be touching your dick. Anything that's going to cause fatigue, you should be limited. If you want to pump up a bit for, fun, that's fine, but don't do it more than once a week. And ideally, you don't do it at all.
All right, last question before I do another set. Did I make a mistake buying the ballast forte? I always have the increase of 2 to 3% after 2 hours on the red. Should I continue until the gains slow down?
You didn't make a mistake. If it wasn't $500, I probably would have bought it. That being said, continue with it. It should work fine. I've seen people get results with it. The nice thing is that since you're only at 2 or 3 hours and showing gains, you probably have at least a year with it before you have to switch to something else. Granted, wearing it for 6 hours, though, it's going to be a real pain in the ass. All right, give me, 30 seconds, guys.
So this was the stretch stuff.
I can't remember who brought it up, but he says to do top half partials and tricep extensions. What Ben Bukowski would have us do is basically hold it here for 10 seconds, drop the weight, come back, do another 8 to 10 sets, or reps rather, and then hold it again. Granted, you would make sure our tempo, I'm acting like you trained me, I just had this ebook or program. Hold this for as long as you can. Since I don't want you guys staring at my ass for another minute, you have to pay for my OnlyFans for that. I'm gonna switch here. Oh, sorry. Get hold. And then what you want to be doing during these stretch sets is flex your biceps a little. And then if you can, pull back your elbows farther. So that way your entire tricep is under some form of load. And that builds up a bunch of metabolites to cause more gains potentially. Should really increase the density of your muscle fibers. Robbie, retention is going to help train your plastic to be longer. However, it should have a direct correlation to your erect size. So you'll see immediate improvements with flaccid size, but over time you'll see a faster rate of gain with your erect size compared to someone who's not doing retention, in theory. Is pumping twice a day overwork? Depends on how much you're doing. If you're doing 20 minutes a session every day, twice a day, yeah, you're probably getting a little close to overwork. But if you're doing 10 to 15 minutes, that's probably fine. It really just depends on how much pressure you're using too. Hank would do twice a day out of necessity with his schedule. He's still made gains. He's consistently gained, so it's probably fine.
For those guys with dark spots on their skin after pumping, vitamin E oil helps. So, vitamin E is a vasodilator, and that helps bring fresh blood to the surface of your skin. It helps discharge any clotted blood, essentially, or any, what is it? Basically, blood stains in the skin. But like if you have like severe discoloration, potentially the best way to fix it is through light skin peels over the course of 2 or 3 months after you're done with PE, and you'll just look good as new afterwards. You'll probably be a little bit redder just because there's going to be more blood in the member, but you won't have the same like ashen look. Is cylinder sizing different for Y to D guys? So like your corpus spongiosum is not as thick compared to your corpus cavernosum. It's not like a perfect cylinder. Yeah, it couldn't hurt to go up another size, but like the issue with most cylinders, I don't know why I'm moving this. The issue with most cylinders, like changes in size, is it gets exponentially bigger each jump. So 1.75 to 2.0, not that bad. 2.0 to 2.5, that's a 3/4 of an inch difference in diameter. And when we get to 2.25 to 2.5, that's over an inch in diameter. Granted, not that huge of a deal, but you can suck in your testicles pretty easily. Wider corpus cavernosums could benefit mainly from comfort with a slightly wider tube, but it's not the be all or end all. Okay. Oh, now I remember what I was doing. Incline curls, so I can show you the other straps and stuff. And then I'm done for today. That's not true. I got cardio to do after this. Keep the questions coming if you got them, guys. Ugh, started to lose my voice. So, question just came in. Something about Viagra, right? All right, showed up on my other computer, not this one. But performance anxiety for Viagra, or treatment for performance anxiety with Viagra, is it a placebo? Yes, for the most part, it is. Basically, Viagra is massively overprescribed. And while it's relatively benign, most guys don't need it. They really need to go to a therapist. But this is much cheaper in the long run, to be honest. It will help with a tight pelvic floor due to performance anxiety. But really, it's that mental boost of like, okay, I took Viagra, I'm going to be at my best, I don't have to worry about this, is what actually helps with the erection quality with people with performance anxiety. Go on. Oh, this is going to throw my calorie count all out of whack. When clamping, do you gain the most girth close to the clamp? Thinking of clamping mid-shift to even it out. I'm not sure. So I haven't really practiced clamping in the past year or so. My base girth has gotten slightly smaller since I stopped doing that. And that could just be lack of inflammation. But if you cut off blood supply to an area, the area around the stint
will show an increase in arteriogenesis, meaning that it is stemming out and trying to find a way to connect a path or at least alleviate the pressure. So, in principle, if you stint the growth up your shaft, so let's say you put 5 to 6 relatively light concretes up your shaft, you'll see this arteriogenesis happen. One more. But I don't think that's safe. So I would not do that. I would actually get a narrower cylinder, keep your base from expanding, pump to get to that size. That's basically what I've been doing for the past 3 years. No issues until recently, where I guess the density of my base has made it a little bit hard for the top to expand. So all I had to do was go up a tube size to resolve the issue. Ugh. So, for the water method, do you need to suck out all the water? I saw Mike told him, man, we have a pretty huge amount in one of his videos, but I saw you suck almost all of it out. So, Total Man's caps, vacuum cups, float with water. So that's why he had a huge air bubble. With my cups, or the El Cheapo that you find on eBay, they're the same thing. Mine just happen to be clear. They will hold the pressure. They don't have a float valve. So it should work. It depends what cup you have, but if you have my cups, use enough. Sorry. If you have my cups, you can fill it up completely. If you have Total Man cups, you need to leave a room for air, but that room for air also decreases grip. So you're probably better off taping when you use a Total Man cup. That is just my opinion, and I am very biased because I sell my own shit. So take that as you will. I do think Total Man's vacuum valve is replaceable, though. So don't quote me on that. Actually, someone find out and let me know tomorrow. I did that too early. I had another set before I did the drop. What is that? Bear bug? No, bear hug. Do you prefer vibrations with extending or pumping? It's definitely more intense with extending, but I'm also doing it for about 10 to 20 minutes longer. With pumping, crazy swelling for me, like good swell. Very minimal edema after the first or second day. Hank, completely different story, but it depends on what you're trying to target. If you're trying to go for length, use it with your hanger or vibrator. Use it with your extender or hanger, I mean, the vibrations. And then for girth, use it with your pump. I have been having a few guys test out what I've been using. The massage chair engine, not the concrete engine. And they're seeing very good gains with girth training with just the massage chair engine. So that's good for us because that means we don't need something that high powered around our genitals, right? Additionally, they've also said the vertical orientation, which I've been recommending all along, is giving them better results than the horizontal orientation. So, again, I like being right, but at this point it's more exploratory than anything than proving anyone wrong. All right, let me get this drop set done. I realized I was listening to Chance the Rapper from 2016. Is Chance the Rapper actually any good? Oh. Now this is the stretch set. Oh, you really feel it in incline curls if anyone's going to try this later. This is probably too big of a drop on one. Probably gonna do one instead of the drop 2 today. Ugh, how much cheated. All right, so that was a boring minute for you guys. Ugh. Oh wow, a lot more came in. I don't know why my chat never shows properly. I'm sorry, trying to find it. Daniel gained 1 inch from jogging and manual stretching years ago. Started with fellas and I'm pumping. Max expectations another inch. So I'm assuming you mean like max gains. I am a bit of a outlier in this, but I genuinely believe that there is no limit to how much you can gain. Again, I have been doing this for about a decade, 6 years on. I have gained 3 inches. I'm gaining faster now than I did in the middle because of applying science. So, to me, there's no practical limit on what you can gain. Or I guess theoretical. Practical limit is how much a human can actually handle. Another inch in a year is possible, but you gotta have a bit of luck for that. I've been trying infrared heat stuff with pumping. I think there's a lot more expansion, but post-pump girth hasn't changed shit. It's been less than a week. It's going to be relatively hard to track post-pump girth if you're not using a cock ring. And depending on how hydrated I am or how much salt I had that day will change how much like sub-Q edema I get. So it's kind of hard to track post-session gains. So really, if you get a lot of data and then you can track the trend as you normalize it, but at the end of the day, if you see slight changes week to week to week, that's all you really got to care about. Nacho Macho, this is a Surface Pro 9, so it's just a Windows laptop that is a 2-in-1. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to find the spot. Could you explain the benefits of painful extending over one long set? Okay. I did not fart. I swear I didn't. That was the little rubber pad here. Okay, I can recreate it. Thank God. Basically, with interval extending, the research suggests the more often you load collagen, the easier and more fatigued it happens. Wait, let me rephrase. The more you load collagen, meaning the often you take the weight off from a tendon, the more fatigue it generates. So, what that means is every set, it's the loading that causes the fatigue because it's constantly stretching. Those stretch cycles are what's going to cause the mechanical breakdown. So, the more often we load the tissue, the more fatigue we generate. Therefore, one long set is just one load cycle compared to, I think, the at least 10 that I have you to do with the interval length protocol. So, you're getting 10 times more chances of failure of the collagen fibrils compared to just one underextending. Now, with one long set of extending, you get something called stress relaxation. That's not necessarily fatigue as much as it is just the collagen slowly stretching out while still keeping form. If we're trying to grow, we need a bit of mechanical fatigue and failure in the tissues. Does nutrition matter for PE? Not really. It'll affect erection quality much more. So for me, I am very carb dominant. I'm probably close to 300 to 400 carbs
grams of carb a day right now. If that number drops below 250, I will notice my erection quality tank, even with CMs. But at the very least, if you're getting adequate protein, adequate to me is at least 100 grams of protein for non-weight trainers, like weightlifters, then you'll be fine. Sleep is far more important than nutrition. Is using an extender better than hanging? I'm going to go on a limb here. High tension extenders are better in a vacuum than hanging. And that is solely because that stress is isolated directly on the shaft. So you're not going to get any of that force dissipated into the pelvic floor, into the suspensory ligament, maybe a little bit of suspensory ligament, but for the most part, it's all isolated in the shaft. Additionally, you have 2 points of contact, your glands and your base. So that moves the stretch point dead center into your shaft. So it's more of a spreading motion rather than a pulling motion. And that should lead to better fatigue. Any specific cardio to enhance gains for PE? You feel like long and steady shoots cortisol through the roof. Okay, so it depends on how long you're doing it. I genuinely think anything more than, say, 45 minutes a day is nuts, and you should only really be doing 45 minutes of steady state cardio a day if you're trying to lose weight. I do max of 30 minutes when I'm not trying to lose weight, steady state. If you're trying to really just increase VO2 max, so like how much blood volume, blood oxygen you can use, high intensity interval training is going to be your best bet. And that should have the fastest impact on erection quality. Steady state cardio is much better for sexual endurance. Cybra, how to know if a cylinder is too big aside from your testes being sucked in? Your fat pad gets sucked in. So, for example, if I use a 3-inch cylinder, my entire mons pubis is sucked in as well. And fat expands easier since there's no like real structure to it. So you'll actually end up pumping your fat pad. So like I have a 2-stage cylinder from LA Pump, pump the testes and nuts at the same time. It causes my fat pad to swell a lot too because the opening is about 3.5 inches. So that's one of the main reasons why I recommend using a fitted cylinder, is to make sure the swelling goes where it's supposed to, because you only want that negative pressure hitting the corpus cavernosum and the tunica albuginea, ideally. Am I on gear? If so, what are you using? I am enhanced. I'm not going to say what I'm using until I'm done with it, because I don't want to give any younger individuals any ideas. What extender do you recommend? I recommend the Apex extender. The problem is that they are always in high demand, therefore they always have stocking issues. But if you can get one, get one. It's my favorite device for length. Daniel, I am only doing 30 minutes a day for length and then 20 to 30 minutes a day for girth. That's it. Again, this comes down to, one, using vibrations. This shit's potentially revolutionary for penis enlargement. And two, actually understanding what we are doing. So, back in the old days, we used to think this from a physics perspective, where the more work we did, the more the tissue degrades, and since it's plastic deformation, we're stretching out the plastic. This is completely forgetting the part about injury and stress adaptation. With stress adaptation, if we do too much work, we are making it so much harder for us to gain in the future. So if we just limit ourselves to the maximum amount of stimulus we can get without overworking the tissue, we completely avoid the negative stress adaptation of fibrosis and like denser collagen fibrils rather than longer collagen fibrils. And we can keep using the relatively same amount of work that we have been for the past year and a half and still make really good gains. At least that's my theory. Ugh, guys, I want to log off, but you keep asking questions. And Daniel, you are welcome. Zem, you think there's any way to use the vibration with the male hanger or just vacuum cup? You might want to put Ben up to it before anything else. I think it really depends how big you are. I could probably squeeze the vibration engine on with the male hanger, but it's going to make a lot of rattle. So talk to Ben before you do that. Have him try it out first. Any specific foods for erection quality? Not really for me. It's really comes down to the amount of carbs and salt I eat. I sweat a lot. It kind of comes with the territory of being over 200 pounds, and then I just burn a lot of carbs. I'm just a carby boy, is how I put it. So if my energy and my electrolytes are off balance, I am going to have relatively poor erection quality. So when I'm doing a lot of cardio and cutting, that's when I see a huge tank in erection quality. Would it be safe to use vibration when extending and pumping? When extending and pumping daily for both. So my practical limit is 3 10-minute sets for vibrations. Anything more than that, you're probably going to start seeing some negative side effects from vibrations, speaking from the relatively low amount of time I've had, over 30 minutes. So you can break this up. If you're trying to target just one, though, do it all 30 minutes with that one session. So if you're trying to get nothing but length, do 30 minutes of vibration therapy with extending. And if you're trying to get nothing but girth, do 30 minutes of vibration extending just with pumping. But you can split it up how you want. So like 15 and 15, probably fine. But yeah, for the most part, limit your max time max time of vibrations to 30 minutes. Leonardo, when is it ever okay to Kegel or any other method to regain AQ when clamping? Also, with a tight suspensory ligament, am I better off doing straight down manuals or straight out for time's sake? Sorry, so I have 3 huskies, so you guys already know that. They're getting a little rowdy upstairs, so I am going to have to cut short. So when you Kegel, while clamping, the issue is that you're not letting that blood in the pelvic floor get into the corpus cavernosum. So that blood hits the wall, those muscles then are under more pressure, and that can cause muscle spasm. That's why no one really recommends Kegling while clamping. That being said, if you're losing erection while clamping, that's normal. Because think about what we're doing. We are trying to cause a bit of fatigue to the tuna hypogenia when clamping. So as that tissue breaks down a bit, it's going to get softer, easier to press against. Therefore, it's going to get wider and softer. So ideally, when you feel yourself getting softer clamping, you take off the clamp, get erect again, start the entire process over, and that's how you're going to get more gains, at least when you clamp. And you're doing expansive clamping instead of hypoxic clamping. For the tight suspensory ligament, there's something called between the cheek stretch, and hopefully this doesn't get this limited. But basically, you take your dinger, you pull it between your legs, you hold it, or I don't know, minute, repeat 5 times, 5 to 10 times, and you're going to get a hell of a burn on your pelvic bone. And that's the ligament stretching and, breaking down a bit. Over time, that's going to lead to a drop in erection angle. I'm not a native speaker, okay? So your English is okay so far. Would you recommend doing PE if I have porn-induced erectile dysfunction, or should I wait until I've cured that? And this is gonna be the last one because my throat's getting really sore, guys. I need to get protein into me. But basically, I would limit any exposure to anything sexual while getting over porn-induced erectile dysfunction because it's just going to make it easier long term. So let's say it takes you 4 to 6 weeks to get over your porn-induced erectile dysfunction. That's when you can start PE. And on top of that, a lot of people's size insecurity starts from chronic porn consumption. So if we cut back on the porn, your desire to be bigger is going to be much less. So, at least on paper. Yeah, sorry someone tagged me in this. So, cut out the porn for 4 to 6 weeks. If you still want to get bigger after that, by all means go for it. It should be easier to do this stuff when you're no longer porn addicted. I really recommend you checking out tendon healing topics using collagen before workout. Would you recommend that work if it's for tendon before workout? I'm not exactly sure what you're saying. Let's see. Nebby, bring that question up tomorrow. I'll be on same time, 2 o'clock tomorrow, probably until 3 again. That is a long topic, and I can just talk about it the entire stream if you would like. It depends on what else comes up, obviously. And I guess last question. Do you have planned time to resensitize the D or just from feedback? I'm assuming you mean like you lose a bit of sensitivity from doing PE. When I stop PE for about 2 to 3 weeks, my sensitivity returns to normal. That's all I really need. That being said, if you take certain supplements to help with nerve sensitivity, we sell something called Shield on Leviathan Subs. That's going Leviathan Wellness, LeviathanSubs.com. That's going to help like give all the nutrients and some of the signaling need to help with this nerve regeneration. But at the end of the day, a lot of my issues with sensitivity comes to my skin being beat up rather than my nerves being, shot. So that's why I recommend using a very good moisturizer like 2 to 3 times a day when you're doing PE practices, just so that skin stays healthy and that way you can keep most of your sensitivity. But for the most part, pumping makes me more sensitive after the fact, just because like I'm basically playing with myself for 20 minutes already. If I take a break and come back to it, I'm even more sensitive when I come back around. So, all right, guys, I think this was successful. So, I hopefully will see some of you guys tomorrow. If not, I'm gonna try to do this at least 3 days a week. Hopefully, every weekday I can get into a rhythm doing this. So, I'm not sure how many PE questions I will be answering, just depending on what my workout is, but hope to see you then.